What's up, Rob?
Not much. How are you doing? It was very, very hot today. Very, very hot day. I feel like summer's on the horizon. I'm wearing shorts right now, living my best life, which is funny because literally 1 week ago, there's this, as I was saying the other day, there's this massive ice storm here in Quebec, freezing cold, knocked over all these trees, blanketed the entire the city and the province with ice, and then like 1 week later, it's like summer. That feels a little weird in terms of like a weather event, but I guess this is the kind of stuff we just have to get used to now. I don't know. I'm not going to complain. It's nice.
It's very hot here in DC as well. We did not have an ice storm, though. I don't envy you northerners for your weather, but the summers here can get kind of brutal. So I'm dreading. I'm just going to try to enjoy the warmth before it gets way too humid, which happens pretty quickly here in DC.
The swamp.
It is the swamp.
Yeah.
But speaking of weather, did you happen to see the rain in Fort Lauderdale, Florida? They're saying it's a 1 in 1,000 year rainfall event. You see this?
No, yeah, there seems to be a lot of these 1 in 1,000 years types of weather events that are going on lately. It's weird. I thought the whole concept of a 1 in 1,000 things, it means that it's rare, but seems like this is kind of like a increasingly frequent kind of situation, these kind of extreme weather events. I wonder if there's any possible cause for that, or it must be just a total coincidence. I don't know.
Yeah. And at the same time, we're looking at more than 100 temperature records could be broken across the Midwest and the Northeast this week through end of day Friday, tomorrow. So again, probably just a coincidence that we're getting record heat this early in the year and a 1 in 1,000 year rainfall in Florida on top of all of these other record and, quote, anomaly type weather incidents over the past several years. I think the best thing we can do is just ignore it. Keep greenlighting, more drilling projects.
That's right.
Keep slow rolling any type of Green New Deal. Slow down on any type of climate overhaul or emissions overhaul. Just let the oil companies do what they need. They are going to bring us to net zero by 2100.
Yeah, listen, the average kind of moderate suburban voter, they're turned off by this kind of thing. So you just got to ignore it. No, like you were saying, like when it comes to this massive flooding that's happening in Florida right now, and it's barely even being talked about in the news. And I think I had kind of a moment of clarity when you realize like, oh, this is just what it's going to be. The more extreme these weather events get, I think the less attention is going to be paid to it. It's going to be like, oh yeah, by the way, Florida is basically entirely underwater now. But in other news, fucking White Claw has hired a non-binary spokesperson. Let's have 9,000 headlines about that and have a big back and forth backlash between that. And you have the woke people buying them and chugging them. And then you have the anti-woke people getting mad at them and like drone striking them or whatever. It's definitely a healthy climate, I think.
Yeah.
It's a healthy climate, outside and also in our discourse.
Yeah, we're really focused on the important things in life. Like that's what's going to really change things. It's so clearly a distraction. It is such a fucking distraction. And I get frustrated when I see people on the left or progressives or even liberals continually fall for it and be like, we have to take up this fight. No, just let them scream. I mean, ultimately they're just doing PR for a corporation.
Yeah.
Don't aid that. No real, working class person gives a shit. It's just at the end of the day, they don't fucking care. These are people oftentimes in highly paid positions who work jobs that are subsidized by these fucking freak billionaire benefactors to turn these things and spin them into controversies. So then you post about them, you react. Who fucking cares? Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who Bud Light's spokesperson for a social media post is.
I mean, that's the amazing thing is that the people freaking out about this are literally being paid by, billionaire oil and fracking magnates, literally to distract from the disastrous apocalyptic consequences that their own industries are visiting upon people. It's really depressing shit. I don't know.
Yeah. we get into a little bit of the kind of the bullshit culture war stuff and the response, the anti-woke beer, but that's just a small part of our conversation that's upcoming with LucidFoxx. We spend a lot of time talking about the restrictions on abortion pills, which we got into on our last episode with Chris Geidner. The need to confirm federal judges that is being hamstrung by Senator Dianne Feinstein's absence. The response to her absence and calls for her to resign are being met with accusations of misogyny and sexism. We talk about that conversation and why that type of hollow identity politics is very reductionist. We also talk about the military documents that leaked on a Discord server. We get into the San Francisco, quote, crime wave over the Cash App CEO who was stabbed and killed, and a few other things with our guest LucidFoxx. It was a really, really great conversation. I had a ton of fun. I don't know about you, Rob.
Not so much.
Are you still nursing your wounds from the Raptors loss?
Yeah. I'm too sad about sports to really enjoy it. No, but I love Lucid. Always enjoy having him on. He had made his annual appearance on the podcast. I would encourage people also to go back if you want to explore more the story about Clarence Thomas and the Hitler-loving right-wing billionaire. What's his name?
Harlan Crow.
Harlan Crow. Yeah, God, that just sounds so like an evil billionaire. Like it's like you couldn't script this more.
Absolutely.
We got more into that whole story. We touched on it with Lucid, but we devoted the previous episode to it with another return guest, Chris Geidner, writer of Law Dork, really getting into the legal implications of like what's been going on in the Supreme Court in the United States lately and this kind of corruption case. That is a great episode as well. That's a bonus episode for our beloved paid interns. So if you do want to hear that and all the rest of our incredible bonus content, you can do so by subscribing to the podcast and becoming a paid intern. And you can do that by going to the Substack, the Insurgents.substack.com. You'd think I'd be better at this by now after those 3 years of doing this, but not so much. Yeah.
It's quite a mouthful. But yes, we thank you to everyone who has subscribed. And if you do want to subscribe again, theinsurgents.substack.com. It's just $5 a month. You get an extra episode every week, and you help keep this show going. And as we talk about in our opening with Lucid, because of the support for this show, we're talking about a new venture for next year around the DNC. So stick and stay. You'll appreciate what we have in store for that.
Absolutely. And why don't we bring on LucidFoxx now? That we went pretty deep with this one, so I think we should get to that.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. And LucidFoxx is going to be joining the program right after this.
Rob, you look primed. What was that face?
Not really. I don't know.
I feel
like you're leaning on me for the small opening small talk moments. I don't know. I'm kind of a little sad about sports. I don't know. That's all I got going on.
Do you need to talk through it? Listen, this could be a little therapy hour instead. We don't have to do like political stuff.
Yeah, we can just do that. I'm actually relying exclusively on ChatGPT for that now. That's my
nice. That's important.
It's my number one point of contact for my therapeutic needs.
I saw an AI generated like Mario and Luigi like picture yesterday, and I was like, why? We've our Illumination Studios just put millions of dollars into that. What are you doing? What's going on?
Well,
where's Rob, the utility of AI?
I'm sorry the Raptors lost. You know, I turned the game on in the third quarter. They were up by nearly 20, and I went back to something more important, which is Fortnite. And
yes,
they've got this in the bag.
The new stuff, man.
And they blew it.
It was rough.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was pretty much. It was a very depressing season, and it was pretty much a very fitting end to that. I really was like not emotionally invested this season, precisely because like I just couldn't handle the negative vibes. And I was like, I gotta disengage. I can't be obsessed with this and be feeling bad about sports all the time. But I was like, I still felt like, they'll probably get into the playoffs. I'll watch this play-in game. I feel confident that they'll get out of that and at least have a first-round exit. And then, blew this huge lead. Just like finding new and interesting and historic ways to lose. I think that's always interesting as a sports fan when you see that. This case with the free throws, and then
that's
becoming
like your little taste of being like a Democrat. I think.
Yeah, it's a little bit
in
like
America.
That. Yeah, you're just conditioned to lose all the time, and you're just that's what you're signing up for when you get involved with it.
Yeah.
And then losing, and then basically becoming a meme where it's like not only did you lose humiliatingly, but you basically because of a child screaming in the stands who then took over all the headlines. That's what the narrative was. They couldn't handle the screaming child, and it's like, come on,
Lucid, did you see those
clips?
clips?
Come on, man.
I did. I saw. I was also playing Fortnite last night, so I saw
DeMar DeRozan on the Bulls. His daughter was in the stands, and every time one of the Raptors players took a free throw, she would shriek, and it would like echo through this, colossal arena. Yeah. And it was like it was picked up on the broadcast. The broadcasters were trying to find out who it was, and they realized it was his daughter, and she did it throughout the game.
That's amazing.
They started doing a split screen.
Collectively 50%.
Listen, that's a classic heckler play in like professional pool. We love to see that, honestly.
You gotta respect it.
It was a one possession game in which they missed 18 free throws. Really, it's like you almost have you really have to marvel at it. Something else. But I think at the same time, I think that's the thing though, is that if you're like mad about sports and you're blaming a literal child, I think it's a good sign that things for the team have just kind of gone off the rails. I think there's probably more going on than
that's true.
That's screaming. True. But I saw people like, get security to get her. It's like,
Yeah, that's right.
I was there to catch Rob when he was down, and I offered him some advice that I think would, any sports fan in Rob's situation right now could benefit from. It's become a Cleveland sports fan. The Cavs are they're gonna square off against the Knicks in the first round. Yeah. Join us. Become a Cavs fan for this playoff cycle.
If you want to know winning and the joy of sports, you just latch on to the Cleveland teams. That's what that timeless saying.
Yeah. That's right. Again, while you're there, taking the local culture too. They've got a Skyline Chili. That's something.
Yeah, that's Cincinnati. That is Cincinnati.
Yeah, sure. Whatever. They're all the same place. There's more than one city in Ohio, huh? That's weird.
We've got at least 3.
The Buckeyes, taking the Buckeyes.
I'd like to try that chili. It seems kind of interesting.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's something, It's very simple, no frills.
No, whoa. Depends on how you order it. You can get it like 3-way, 5-way, 7-way. I'm telling you, you can really level that puppy up.
They're all ingredients that you could get at a buy-low, Jordan. It's not like you're not putting like shaved truffle on it.
We can make it 9-way.
Yeah, sure.
Is that the one that they put like a ludicrous amount of cheese on it?
Yeah.
Is that part of it?
Yes.
I mean, that improves anything.
Like slopping
spaghetti,
off the plate.
Chili, onions, cheese. Yeah, it rocks.
Sign me up.
Everything you could imagine.
Sign me up. I'm going to be a honorary Ohio boy in no time.
Yeah. I'll show you the way.
Nice.
No, you know what place rocks in Cleveland? It's called Melt Bar and Grilled. Ooh. And they make these enormous grilled cheese sandwiches. Yeah. And you can basically get like whatever you want in the grilled cheese. So imagine standard American fare restaurant. Yeah. Any entree can go in one of these grilled cheese sandwiches.
Yeah.
You want chicken parm, it's in there. You want meatballs, it's in there.
Yeah.
You want like fantastic. A jalapeno popper sandwich, you can have it. It fucking rocks.
That's great. It's like something out of my stone dreams.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think I can be an honorary Ohio guy. I mean, I grew up in Eastern Ontario, Canada, which is basically Ohio in any ways, like with few minor differences.
Is that? Sure. Right.
Yeah. It's basically the same thing. So I'll fit right in.
Right. Okay. There you go. See? Yeah. I've only been to Ohio a couple of times, once to Cincinnati and once to camp there, and I think that's good.
Cincinnati's just not that great. Cleveland has come a long way in the past 10 years.
That's what I hear,
It's really cool now. Okay, let me take a step back. It's not really cool, but it's much better than a.
No, I was going to let you keep going. Go ahead. How cool is it?
As I said it.
Maybe that's taking a little far.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Lying to yourself about this.
Yeah, there's 3 places you can go glow bowling. It's great. Yeah.
Oh, it's nice. It's been spruced up. They put a ton of money into it because of the RNC in 2016. Really revitalized the downtown area.
Sure. Now, are y'all going Chicago next year? What's up?
Honestly,
it'd be fun.
That could be a fun thing. We talked about doing that in 2020. Mm-hmm. Remember? Rob?
Yeah.
Before the pandemic, we talked about doing that for this show. Yeah. We should think about doing that next year. For this show.
I think I'm going to hit it up. I think I'm going to do a little IRL streaming out there.
Oh, let's do it.
Yeah, I could be convinced. That could be cool.
Yeah, it'll be a weird little time.
We're going to be doing the Macarena.
First time since we do the Macarena out there. It's the first time since Clinton, right?
Yeah, that's that clip was getting circulated again of the last time they were there. Just like the
it's so good,
dorkiest shit you've ever seen.
Chris Eliza.
Although they were having fun, so you got to give it up for them.
Yeah, that's right. They were having a good time.
Chris Eliza, the former CNN commentator, now Substack writer, posted on Notes, their Twitter competitor, the other day. Yeah. Hey, would anyone be interested in a piece about why Chicago is the wrong pick for Democrats to host the DNC next year? And his replies were just like flooded. Like, nope, not at all. Not interested.
No, thank you.
Doesn't sound good.
Nice. That's so good. Man, what a guy. Like, I love Chris Eliza for just so many reasons,
I mean, that kind of thinking overinflates the significance of the location. Like, maybe there's some tangible benefit in that state, but really which electoral outcome has really been decided by the location of the RNC or the DNC? Like, who gives a shit?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I did see that there was internal things where Biden wanted it to be in Georgia or something, which would somehow help his reelection chances. But like, would it though? I don't know. Like, would that make a difference? Yeah. I don't know. I don't think really. Why would it? I don't know.
Right.
I get that line of thinking because it brings a lot of business. A ton of money to the state because everyone traveling there, all the money they're going to spend there. Sure, it's like a thank you for voters.
That's so ephemeral compared to, like, you're comparing how many months out from the actual election. It's just like,
people
I don't think it's influenced by something that happens like 2 weeks out.
Yeah, it wouldn't like change the outcome of the election, but like it is a nice thing to continue to grow in that momentum they've had in the state, which they have had in Georgia. They've had a lot of growth in Georgia over the past few years. But like, I don't knock him for that, but that makes more sense. Him arguing for that makes more sense than Chris Eliza saying it's a bad idea to have it in Chicago, which isn't rooted in reality. It's a Democratic stronghold and has been for decades.
Yeah. For sure.
Whatever.
Give it something back,
Well, we should do it. Let's lock it in.
Hell yeah.
All right. Let's just commit to doing it now.
All right.
We'll pop over to
Rob,
all the Chicago eateries.
Oh, there's such good food there.
There really is. Oh, I haven't had Portillo's in so long.
Not a place that first comes to mind when I think of Chicago.
Really?
I've had Portillo's
once. I'm such a sloppy lad. I love Portillo's. It's great.
I love the Quads pizza though.
Yeah.
Quads?
I actually, so I used to work for Uno's, so I've been to their original location out there. And I don't mind it as far as like Chicago pizza is concerned.
Great Mexican food in Chicago as well.
Yeah, true.
I haven't been there for quite some time.
It's a good food city.
Well, we're going next year, Rob.
All right, let's do it.
Mark it on your calendar.
Let's do it.
Insurgents takes Chicago.
Yeah. Hell yeah. We're doing it.
Well, big story in the Democratic world this week is Senator Dianne Feinstein's health. The senator from California is not well. Apparently, she's been battling shingles for the past few months. On top of, years at this point of reports from people in her staff and people close to her in the Senate who've said she is not all there. That's as evidenced by her
Sense
behavior.
to me.
I think the Kavanaugh hearing or the Amy Coney Barrett hearing.
Yeah, it was Amy Coney Barrett when she went up and hugged her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just talking about how great she was. Like, this person is not all there. So she hasn't been present for like 50 some of the 60 or so votes that the Senate has taken this year. And because of her absence, they haven't been able to confirm any judges. Now, this is a very pressing issue because, the Republicans have focused on courts and judges as their strategy for years, and Democrats are finally just catching up. We'll get to that in a second. But I want to talk first about the narrative that is now growing and building from people in the House and Senate who are friendly and loyal to her, and also just general Democratic loyalists who are saying, whoa, you should not talk about her resignation. You should not call for her resignation because that is, sexist. It's rooted in misogyny. You didn't do that for Fetterman. And I'm curious how both of you take, the comparisons to Fetterman, who took some time off from the Senate to deal with clinical depression, to someone who purportedly has dementia, purportedly is not there, and also has not been present for months now. What has been your reads on this line of defense that we should keep Feinstein in the Senate?
I mean, she's 89, man. Like, I
really
keep going
old.
back to the fact that, like, she's a senior member of the like, it blows my mind. I understand that it's a point of seniority to have her on the judiciary committee, but like, it blows my mind that she's still an active, like, member of this thing that we, like, regularly need to confirm, like, federal judges. It's like, wait, why wouldn't you just this isn't a point of, like, I guess this isn't an honorary thing. This isn't a ceremonial position. This is a real working position, and to have somebody there that's bridging on 90 is going to be retiring at the end of their term. It's just none of it reads for me,
Well, I mean, I do think it's kind of sexist to suggest that just because someone happens as a U.S. senator with these important responsibilities to have to demand that they are able to do their basic job. I think that's pretty messed up. And I don't know, obviously it's very different.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi came out on that video,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. Going after the bros for this correctly, of course. That's why we send her all those flowers that time. But that's right. I mean, I think comparing it to like what's Fetterman in his 50s, who's taking a small time off to deal with these issues, is maybe a little bit different than someone that's 89, who there's been numerous reports on this, is like basically being led around by your staff and basically told what to do and doesn't really know what's going on anymore. I think that's probably pretty not a great situation. And it's bizarre that, that they haven't really like cracked the whip on that or done anything to try and like move that process along. And it's also, I think it's a little silly, a lot of the discourse around it, like, she deserves to be left alone or whatever. But as I recall, this exact conversation was going on when she was running for re-election a few years ago, and people were saying she should step aside. She's super old. And people said the exact same thing. Leave her alone. Yeah. She's allowed to do what she wants, and she's a girl boss, and you got to step. But it's like, this is the exact reason that people were making that case, because it's like, you need someone in there that's going to be able to be capable of like fulfilling these basic functions that you need, which she's clearly not really able to do anymore. You shared, Jordan, the other day, that clip of like the climate protesters that were talking to her, and she's like, I know what I'm doing. I've been in here for decades. I know what I'm doing. And it's like, well, there she is, like a few years later, like just completely unable to function.
It also very much rings of like what we've heard just year after year. I was speaking earlier, like it reminds me of just a remix of things that were said about Ruth Bader Ginsburg during the time when she fell ill, and this discussion that she needed to step back. And they said, no, you can't say things like that. That's improper. It's like, I guess, how long is this going to be a shield versus, people that are in like very, very effective like government positions and are called upon for like necessary duties, unable to perform them because they've just gotten on to a point in age where their body, I don't think it's ageist to say, like, their body can't bounce back like it did. Like, she's been dealing with shingles for 3 months now.
I mean, I don't think it's ageist
like,
to say that the U.S. government shouldn't be relying on 90-year-olds to be able to like function. It's like, this is important stuff that's going
absolutely.
on. The U.S. government plays a central role in the entire world and the economic system, and is you're talking about California, it's tens of millions of people that are being represented. So yeah, I don't think it should be like sexist or ageist to say like, no, 90-year-old men or women should probably be, stepping aside to let people that are more physically and, in some cases mentally able to actually fulfill these basic functions. It's funny that that's like controversial.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem with identity politics in general, because people see that as just like the ultimate line of defense, or the ultimate filter for how they see the world and how they see politics and power, when really it should be secondary to someone's credentials and ability. Otherwise, you're just tokenizing. Like, if anything, like, that's more reductive. That viewpoint is more reductive than saying, hey, this person is supremely qualified, these are all their accomplishments, and in addition to that, they also are of XYZ group or this identity, which that diversity is a strength, right? Like, we want supremely qualified and capable people, not just in our government, but in our workplaces, in our communities, and anything. Like, that diversity is a strength, and conservatives attack, this broader term of identity politics, because that's what they're ultimately worried about, because it's a white male patriarchal worldview. They hate any sort of diversity, but like, it is a strength, but also it's not the only thing that matters. Otherwise, you're just tokenizing people. And this knee-jerk reaction from people in Congress and, Dem supporters and pundits, treating this as some clean-cut case of misogyny and sexism is ludicrous. Again, I mean, there were reports of her not being, fully, like, mentally present for years. It's not just the shingles thing. It has been happening for years, going back to her re-election campaign, which people thought she shouldn't have been in altogether.
I would be very interested to see what the conversation is a year out from now for when we start talking about like people that are going to be coming for her seat since she's resigning. I would like to see the conversation around Barbara Lee, who is currently 78, I believe. She'll be 79 when she runs for the seat. Barbara Lee versus a more centrist candidate. And I want to see if there's a similar dialogue for Barbara Lee and these same people saying that she's too old at that point. Because that's like, for me, that's going to be like the most telling thing, right? It's like, well, wait a second. She can get in there for at least a term and do some good work. What do you mean? What's going on?
Yeah. Isn't Ro Khanna maybe angling for getting in that spot as well?
Yeah, Ro Khanna, Katie Porter. There's a couple of people. Ro Khanna, actually, I think one of the only people in California to call for a resignation as well.
You don't think he is, Jordan?
He did. Is he running for Senate? I thought I saw he was.
I've seen rumblings.
Not.
I don't know. I don't know what that.
Yeah, he might be interested. Who knows? I know Katie Porter is definitely interested.
Adam Schiff is too.
Yeah, and Schiff is as well. Yeah.
I think another point too that I want to make on this sort of identity politics point as well, where I think it's really kind of cynical the way this is wielded to talk about people like Dianne Feinstein or Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who are not these like small bean marginalized people. They're extremely powerful people in the United States government. They're not just these
extremely wealthy people.
Exactly, and wealthy as well. And that's another thing I wanted to point out. I said this story about how Feinstein's selling her Aspen vacation home for $25 million. And it's just like, that's the kind of thing. I mean, we've been talking about Clarence Thomas and the kind of corruption that's on the Supreme Court, but it's like, and I mentioned this as well in the last episode when we talked about this, but it's like there's a certain sense of like normalized corruption in Washington as well, where it's like if you're a public figure, I don't know what your salary is, like 200,000 maybe, or 170 or whatever it is, it's high, but it's not high to the point that you're purchasing $25 million homes. which just seems like
well, those are just good stock trades.
Well, exactly, and you see Pelosi and Feinstein,
the
and there's a number of people like in the U.S. government that is on this public servant salary that have just done really gotten really lucky in the trading to get to this point, and it's like I think that speaks to the completely normalized level of corruption that there is in Washington in the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm. I think that's right. Yeah.
So Ro Khanna is not running in 2024, and he's already endorsed Barbara Lee.
Oh, has he? Okay.
That, which is, I think, the right move. She'd be a great replacement.
Like I said, I would absolutely be down for at least a term from Barbara Lee. I think she's,
seems good. Yeah, she's fully functional from what we can tell.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Pretty good positions on things. So that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean Barbara Lee famously, who was the only congressional vote against the authorization for use of force.
Mm-hmm. The only person. Yeah.
Shortly after 9/11 was one of the most bravest votes that anyone's taken. And I think that's the point too, is that it's like, I think it's not ideal to have the most powerful government in the world being run by these like extremely elderly people and people in their 80s and 90s.
Yeah, probably not.
But at the same time, it depends on the person's mental. Like some people are 85 and are still super sharp, and some people are in their 70s and are not so much. Like it actually depends on the situation. There's plenty of that talk with Bernie and stuff as well, with Bernie versus Biden. Well, you're saying Biden's too old or whatever, but look at Bernie, he's old. And it's like, yeah, but Biden's like barely able to talk a lot of the time, whereas Bernie's still very articulate and thinks on his feet. I guess they've been giving Biden the good president drugs now, so maybe he's overcome some of that. They're injecting him with the good stuff before they send him out there now, which they weren't really doing in the primaries. But there is a difference between
he'll be in peak condition next year.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be doing one-arm push-ups on the debate stage.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, Feinstein's absence has prevented the Democrats from confirming any federal judges, which is something that they've wanted to do. Trump and McConnell were really aggressive in just packing the courts during Trump's tenure, and Democrats are hamstrung right now. Yeah. At the same time, these people are arguing, oh, we shouldn't do anything. Just let her leave on her time. At the same time, we're seeing Republicans, again, because of the strategy, be successful in further chipping away at abortion rights nationwide. This time, as we talked about in our last episode, trying to restrict access to abortion medication. Again, very, very safe abortion medication. By forum shopping, just shopping these cases around till they get an opinion they like. That is now in conflict. We saw a tweet from Mark Joseph Stern earlier today who said there was a decision from Judge Thomas Rice, who issued a new order compelling the FDA to preserve access to mifepristone in 17 states and D.C. without any of the old obstacles, irrespective of the Fifth Circuit's decision. This has been a long, kind of convoluted fight with different actions and decisions and orders and stays happening in different courts across the country. Our last episode with Chris Geidner, we went really deep into this fight. But again, I can't help but think they're missing the forest for the trees here by focusing solely on Feinstein and her health and equity in Congress, like gender equity in Congress, when at the same time we need to keep packing these courts with more liberal judges so we don't have to deal with this kind of shit as long as we will if we just leave these seats vacant or don't take on Republicans in a more aggressive legal strategy.
Yeah, I think that's right. Again, it's like Texas specifically, right? Like these are places that are just kind of like set up from like tip to toe. Like obviously we're talking about like the Fifth Circuit Court, right? But to even make it that way, like there's been a circle of like people like familiar with the judiciary. They've like set this up to move it forward in that state. Like they're picking and choosing places. they're kind of like testing like the waters in different states with what they can work with. I think where did I see? I believe today a 6-week ban went into effect.
Florida.
In Florida. And they're just finding these and whether or not it sticks is immaterial. It's looking currently like the mifepristone ban is not going to stick, but it's laying a blueprint for people to work with in the future and try to like continue that work in more subtle ways, trying to figure out what ways they can like push through this like absolute like trash maneuvers, right? But the problem with the Democrats not like actively focusing on the judiciary as their sole goal, like the Federalist Society and the Republicans have over the past couple of decades, is they're at a disadvantage. The Democrats really have, outside of like trying to wield the DOJ and lawsuits, or I guess another option, having Biden just completely ignore the the ruling. They don't really have a lot of road to work with here. So I don't know. It's a really messy situation for the Dems, and I honestly, this isn't a thing that they fix in an election cycle. This is something that takes, like I said with the Federal Society, decades of work to get into. So I honestly don't know like what they do here in the near future to really like repair a lot of this.
Well, it kind of speaks to the way that liberals and conservatives like view these institutions, where conservatives view like they want to mold these institutions to fit their ideals and to carry out their political project, where liberals have this more like deferential view where you can never challenge or you can never unfairly use these institutions to enact any kind of like policy that promotes your political program. But it's like you have two sides playing two totally different games using two totally different sets of rules. And that's why there's just been this like steady march to the right in America over the last several decades. Because you have Democrats, when they don't agree with conservatives, which they do agree on a lot of things, economic policy and a lot of other things. But when they don't agree, completely unwilling to like use their power in any meaningful way to claw back some of these big drastic changes that are being made.
Yeah.
And that's what's so frustrating when we see the stories like the one from ProPublica today. They continued their reporting on Clarence Thomas and revealed Harlan Crow, this billionaire conservative who has been treating Thomas to luxury vacations for 20 some years, also purchased property from Thomas, which Thomas by law was required to disclose, and he never did. And you see that story and you're like, wow, that's bad. He broke the law. And then you think for a second and realize, wow, nothing's going to happen to him because we don't have any enforcement mechanism, because like we talked about with Chris Geidner on the last episode, you have a Congress who's completely unwilling to do anything about it. We have these ideologues with these lifetime appointments on a court that is mostly unchecked because of partisan gridlock in Congress, who are able to roll back your rights, ignore precedent, do whatever they fucking want, interpret the law however they fucking want, just to enact a partisan viewpoint on everybody in this country. And then they just give the finger to everybody and break the law, do whatever the fuck they want, and nothing can happen to them. Like, it's ridiculous. And it's moments like this where, hey, you have a small window to at least change some of the federal judiciary. And even in that small window opportunity, people are saying, no, don't do it because Feinstein should leave on her own terms. These people don't want fucking change. It's purely a fucking aesthetic for them.
Yeah.
Well, that's something like I was saying, it's wrong. Like you're relying on the very people that are benefiting from this obvious corruption to say like, hey, to play by the rules and be like, hey, you need to help us like rein this stuff in. Why would they? Like, they're literally benefiting. There's a GOP mega donor,
right?
Obviously influencing a conservative justice. There's this entire like pay to play process in place to put people in these important positions to advance this specific ideological project. And then when these things come up, and they say, well, this is against the rules, and they're appealing to the very people that are benefiting from this to help them. It's like they're not going to help. They're benefiting from it. That's the amazing thing. Like when all these stories started to break, I was saying, like, this is obvious case of corruption, like open and shut case. In addition to Thomas's connections to his wife and his wife's neck deep in all these January 6th conservative conspiracy stuff, like, just shit can this guy, get rid of him, find a way. But it's like, well, there's nothing we can do. Our hands are tied. We need the votes. We need the Republican votes. There's nothing we can do. And it's just like, well, that seems like a really great system you got down there. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just figure something out.
We've not done a good job of organizing this.
No, I don't think so. Or you've done a great job, depending on who you ask.
Right. True. Yeah. It's I don't know. It's a mess, honestly. Like I said, I don't know what it looks like in the near term to try to fix this, because this is something that takes a lot of time, and it's not something that Democrats really benefit from right now. I've been talking about like next year, pretty candidly, over the past couple of weeks, and all the maps I'm looking at don't look great for the Dems at all. Maybe they hold on to the presidency, and that does something at least. But if we're looking at the Senate, I'm going to be honest with you, man. I don't see the Dems holding power until close to 2030. So it is an extremely rough map for them for many cycles upcoming. So how do they, if they have precious little time to utilize either Feinstein or utilize her seat, and if they aren't able to do that, there is very little they're able to capably do within the Senate in the next coming years.
I would love to see Texas flip. I think that's just
it'd be great.
Somewhat close, but
yeah.
I would also love to see Ted Cruz lose. That's the one that would be such a long shot. Otherwise, sure. It's who's in West Virginia. Manchin's up for re-election.
Mm-hmm. You got Manchin up. You got Tester up. You got a lot of folks in very red
Cinema's
places. Up. Yeah, and how are the Dems going to handle that? Are they going to support a progressive candidate to try to take her seat? Are they going to just
that doesn't sound like something they would
usual? Push forward. Exactly. Are they going to business as usual push forward cinema? Like what's going to happen here? Because that's going to be that's normally, I guess that wouldn't be consequential, but in a year where you have at least 3 seats up in very red states, that is an extremely consequential seat. So I don't know. It's a lot of questions and a lot of worrying answers with how the Dems are playing ball right now, as if they're 20 ahead. As if they're the Toronto Raptors.
You never want your government to look like the Toronto Raptors. That's a bad situation.
And here's the thing: even in Ohio, Sherrod Brown isn't a guarantee. The way that state has been trending red over the past few cycles, that's not even a guarantee, even though he is really beloved there. And Robbie, this is an honorary Ohio guy. He's beloved in that state. But I don't think that's even a safe seat anymore for him. It used to be.
And also you see how, young people really helped during the midterms to avoid this kind of catastrophic defeat that a lot of people were predicting. But what's Biden actually doing for young people? Mm-hmm. On many levels right now, Biden is making this hard turn to the right now on criminal justice. He's throwing red meat to the sort of anti-trans stuff with the whole the sports thing that they're talking about now. They're taking these really right
for no reason.
No, for no reason whatsoever.
Literally no reason for him to do that.
But it's literally been proven to be just not really popular or an electoral winner. But they're like, you know what? Let's do this anyway. They're moving to the right on a lot of these issues.
We don't want them to feel bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's that's going to be alienating for people that took the time and energy to vote for Democrats or to, campaign for them, when they see that that's how that kind of hard work and loyalty gets repaid. There's a good chance that people are going to check right out of that. And it's that's kind of an understandable reaction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lucid, are you buying the anti-woke beer?
Oh man, we went into a deep dive on that today. Actually, it's very. I know Twitter already did as well, I'm sure, but It's just so funny from somebody that worked in that industry for such a long time in like multiple different breweries. I know exactly, like, this is probably like an overflow sale that this guy picked up. He probably like contracted a vat that already had like overproduced, and now he's like, well, I think I'm gonna make a quick buck off of this. And it's like, man, like always, these grifters are always just sitting around waiting in the wings for their chance. This guy's gonna make one run of beer, grab as much money as he can off of it, and disappear into the wind.
Yeah, $30 for a 6-pack of 4%. I'm assuming just watered down Pilsner that just has a bunch of like buzzwords on the can. Probably tastes like absolute shit, but he's owning the libs with his anti-woke beer. The
100%.
clip that killed me was the Tim Pool one. We're defending it, and also this
excellent
politics through consumption concept. She's like,
yes,
if people are making products that are anti-woke, you need to support them. That's why when Jeremy Boring of the Daily Wire introduces anti-woke chocolate, I bought thousands of bars. It's like, why would you buy thousands of chocolate bars?
Do it,
you
man.
Fucking rube.
Yeah,
he's
do
like
it.
The sucker. He's the sucker that these people are targeting.
He's the guy like sitting around like, how many bottles of snake oil can I get from you? Are you sure? You didn't make any more?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I guess. I'll be back next week.
Unlike the woke chocolate, which is produced by like child slaves by massive corporations. I don't know. It's so bizarre. Like, I just got to imagine, like, do these people ever like have a moment of self-awareness where they're like, what am I doing here? Like, I'm serious. There's so many important things going on in the world right now. I've been talking for 2 weeks straight about the Bud Light spokesperson now. This is the most important political issue of our time. It's like, how do they, what is the cognitive dissonance level there where it's like, how do you go about that?
Yeah.
And still like look in the mirror and be like, I'm a serious person and this makes sense what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't get it personally, but
well, I think for a lot of them, it's it's all about the clicks, the follows, the sale, like whatever they're doing, whatever their personal grift
I guess that's
is and how
nice.
they advance it. I think most of the people, and then like, of course, you're going to get the runoff of all the people that are straight up rubes on like TikTok and elsewhere that are making these videos because they've seen their faves, like Tim Pool saying like how woke Bud Light is now. They're like, yeah, I can't even stand to drink anymore. That's why I'm going to drink Coors, who has been present at Pride parades for the last 20 years.
Yeah, and what did that one guy say? Oh, no, like, I found out Coors is commie too. It's like, that's not what that means. Like, I don't know how to explain this to you, but
that's right. Top She owns Coors Light now. Very cool.
God, it's really amazing.
It's hey, listen, that's the whole. I mean, that is. We are, we're just a willing, like, stupid consumer society, and this is the way that people define their lives, is by their choices within this market, and that's all they have. So they can't have this affect that, like, in some way they would support like some sort of divergent thought by consuming the wrong things. They have to like stamp that out immediately, move on to the next thing. And that's why I like, again, this anti-woke beer guy is probably going to sell, at least something. He's gonna make, his money just like any other like weirdo that shows up with their, woke, anti-woke product. Because it's popular right now to have that branding, to show that off to your friends.
We should make even more woke beer.
The funny
because
thing,
it's going to make Bud Light look like nothing. You will become gay and trans if you drink this beer. That's what we should do.
It's Schmidt's gay.
Schmidt's gay. Yeah, there you go.
Schmidt's gay.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
With every campaign, you have to illustrate progress to keep people motivated, to keep people bought in on the premise, right? And with something like this, where there isn't really a tangible action people can take and demonstrate, right? How do you show to your followers beyond like the sensational Kid Rock shooting Bud Light with a gun, like shooting cans of Bud Light? For the average consumer, how do they demonstrate, well, I didn't buy Bud Light today, of the people who are participating? That's tough for the ringleaders, the top, who are pushing this narrative. So what they've done is they have taken to inventing outcomes to illustrate progress that are so unrealistic. These
are you
wild
talking the numbers
claims.
game from Matt Walsh?
Yes.
From
him,
so
Kevin Sorbo claiming they've caused Bud Light $7 billion in losses.
People that literally don't understand the stock market, like their first day, they're like, okay, wait a second. All right, so if they're down 1.9%, then that means, like, not looking at trading volume, not looking at market cap, like having no ideation whatsoever about the actual market. They're just like, this must mean they've lost this much money. And it's like, you fools. Like, and I believe that because I think that Matt Walsh probably has like a CPA. And he probably has like a wealth advisor. So he has people that run these things for him, and he probably has no idea how these markets work. And he's just looking at them, and he's like, guys, $4 billion. The line's
going down.
We did it. Yeah. You know, we've really
before quickly going back up.
Not looking at like market conditions or anything like that, like year over year, like none of these things, you know. And they're just like, yeah, we did it. We stopped Bud Light. It's like, man, it's so easy. Your job is so easy. The conservative grift is the simplest thing. You just say you don't have to like verify anything. You just say like the silliest things imaginable, and people nod their heads and they're like, "Yep, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. You validated."
Yeah, and you don't even, if you have a
amazing
right wing media grift, you don't even need to be profitable because there's dipshit right wing billionaires that love collecting Hitler artifacts that are just going to give you a bunch of money. So it's like it's the easiest job. I don't know.
What did I see? I saw somebody talking about it a couple of days ago, and they're like, I don't know, man, if I'm Clarence Thomas, has anybody ever paid for a vacation for you? Because after the first one, it's just like, wait a second, you want something from me?
Yeah.
Like, it's weird. You keep taking me all these places. I guess this is just what friends
do. Friends do, exactly.
Like, come on, man.
The whole thing with like the business deal,
$500,000 vacations repeatedly.
And these this real estate deal as well, where it's like the guy bought his childhood home or something like that. And this is just a couple of buddies doing a little business together. What's wrong with that? I don't know.
And restored it.
Yeah,
and his mom still lived there.
Yeah,
that is so like brazen.
It's a good friend.
Amazing.
It's not just a sale, and it's like, all right, here you go.
Great. He's a great friend. That Harlan. Yeah. Really, really. I think my favorite thing about Harlan Crow is just like how woke he is about like history.
Exactly.
You know? I think it's really important that he knows like what's good and what's bad.
Yeah, and just like everyone, we need to surround ourselves with constant reminders of all the bad stuff, so we know that it's bad. Everyone does this.
Yeah, 100%.
I surround myself with stuff that I hate all the time. Yeah, exactly. Totally normal, and there's nothing wrong with that. I got posters on the wall right now. I'm looking at them, going just like, hate that.
Ugh. It's the tweet from like 3 years ago. It's like sitting on the bus, like reading Mein Kampf, shaking my head the whole time, so people know that I disagree.
Exactly.
Amazing.
No, but that's the thing. Like with Mein Kampf, like there's you can make the argument that like, you know, maybe it's important to read Mein Kampf just so you understand what fascism is and you understand what Hitler was about.
Sure,
there's a whole argument to be made about that. I have personally not read Mein Kampf, but you know, I've heard people make that kind of argument. But it's like there's a difference between that and owning a signed edition. Then it seems like that's maybe taking that to a level of reverence,
and then you got
that
paintings,
is a little uncomfortable.
and then again, you just gotta remember, you gotta look at all these things. You know, maybe it was like an Always Sunny situation where they like had to keep the paintings so they kept other people from going mad, like Hitler.
That's
did,
right.
You know, that's the whole thing.
God. Weird people.
Oh man, yeah. It's extremely odd.
This one other story this week that I thought has been fascinating to watch develop was the killing of the Cash App founder.
I found out more about that today.
Bob Lee. Yeah. So when this news broke, all these tech and Silicon Valley guys rushed to, you know, beat the same drum. It's crime is out of control in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
California. Yep. There are lax on crime policies resulted in this. It's just the same thing when they are mad at a prosecutor. It's the same thing when anything happens. It's the same old song and dance. Here we are a couple days later. An arrest has been made in the killing of Bob Lee. And it turns out it was Nima Momeni, allegedly Nima Momeni, who is 38 and a tech entrepreneur himself.
Yeah.
And it was just one of their own that did it. And where did those calls about crime being out of control in San Francisco? We saw, Whole Foods is closing. It's because of crime. Walgreens and Walmarts and Targets, everything's CVS. They're all closing because of crime. Well, sheepishly later they admitted they overrepresented how much of a factor crime was, and ultimately it wasn't that. But we're still going to blame crime and liberal prosecutors and a more liberal approach to criminal justice and incarceration and punishment. That's going to be the culprit every time something like this happens. Have you guys have watched this story develop?
Like I said, I learned more about it today. I just kind of heard it in passing, and I was like, "That's odd." And then I saw a little bit of the online conversation, obviously, and like going down the same roads, blaming the criminality of California. Yeah. And then I saw the development today where they found out it was another tech guy, and I was like, "Oh, so I imagine." Oh, we're already done with that cycle. Nobody's going to go back and recant anything they've said. No, of course not. That would be crazy. Well, because I guess that's the game to play, right? It's just, it doesn't matter. You've already said what you said in the moment, and in most people's minds, it still was crime. They're not looking at the story today like, oh, wait, hold up, Or if they do, they'll be like, well, I'm sure he was just like another, pronouns in bio LinkedIn guy or something,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
so there's always going to be an excuse for why this thing happened and why it wasn't because of the criminality or why it was because of the criminality in California and nothing else.
Well, it just made me think of like a hypothetical thought experiment, which is obviously not something I would ever advocate for. But like, let's say in theory, hypothetically, if 5 tech executives were to be publicly hung, would that discourage this kind of behavior from perpetuating further? That's the question. Has no one's tried this, and not that I would ever advocate for that, but
that's true. No, I think that's barbaric, obviously, but
exactly. No, just referencing that absolutely deranged take that lady was like one of these this random San Francisco lady being like, we need to start publicly stringing up like fentanyl dealers and lynching people. Like that's what the discourse is going to.
And that all started because she was like, I saw a naked person outside once.
Exactly.
Anyway, we should hang people, right? I'm like, wait, what?
And that's the thing. It's like, I know that the narrative about this crime wave has been overblown, and the media has been a big part of that, and the politicians are a big part of that. But like, there is, I think, in any of these big hubs of capitalism, you'll see this crisis taking place, where there is a massive increase in homelessness and despair and addiction. Like you're seeing that in San Francisco. You see it in every major city, basically. But people only want to talk about punitive responses to that and don't want to examine the role that the economic system plays in creating these things. Like Lucid, you were talking about living in Austin and how the tech companies move in, the areas get gentrified, housing costs skyrocket, and lo and behold, it leads to these massive unhoused communities. And it leads to these kinds of situations that people rail against, but they never want to talk about the causes for these situations. They only want to talk about how do we get enough cops and enough punishment to fix this problem.
Mm-hmm. There's actually a specific example that I'm thinking of right now from Austin. There was an area where there was an entire tent city, and they paved over it for a new tech campus because that's what Austin's becoming. And so now all these people have moved to the underpasses and everything that are within a half mile or so of that old tent city. And all of a sudden it's why there's so many people under our underpasses. It's like, because you just did the thing. They were in the place that you decided was okay for them to be. And now you said, well, that's not great. So then there was a motion, I believe, that went through about a year and a half ago to make sure within city limits people weren't able to be on the side of the road and under underpass anymore. It's like, you did this. you made it. Those people had a place.
Yeah.
In a community. It's, I don't know. It's sick.
Yeah, and just the way that like actually giving housing to these people is just never discussed as an option, you know, and it's purely entirely punitive. It's like we need more cops, more prisons. You know, if a 10 encampment is popping up, get the cops to come in and bulldoze it and throw people's possessions on the street. People are like taking charge themselves, these like citizen vigilantes, and dismantling people's like makeshift shacks that they're building and public infrastructure. And I think it's just, it's really sick.
That guy. Oof.
The complete lack of compassion for these communities that have been growing and growing as the cost of housing all over the Western world has been going up is really sickening to me, especially a lot of people that classify themselves as being liberal, progressive, whatever. The way that they talk about unhoused people is like real banality of evil stuff. It's been really, I think, grim and very illuminating to see the way that people jump to these kind of conclusions.
One final thing I wanted to get into with Lucid before we wrap was the leak of classified documents by a reserve airman who, as due to his role in some IT capacity, had access to classified documents, which he initially shared. It is wild. We should get into like the size and scope of people's access throughout the government, which Snowden tried to highlight, but they treated him as a pariah and a traitor and ignored most of what he was trying to say. Yeah. But this guy took these documents and shared them in a private Discord server with 20 or so online friends. The channel was called Thug Shaker Central, and it was ultimately a place for these people. These people are 20 or so people who all met because they were fans of this like military YouTuber. And in the server, it was mostly just like guns and military and racist memes being shared. These conversations were around these three topics for the most part. Those documents eventually made their way to a Minecraft map server. And now there was this huge,
I can't believe it,
widely publicized arrest after the New York Times and other outlets in Bellingcat. Some suspicions around Bellingcat, but
I would say
outed this
so,
leaker. Outed this leaker, and there was a widely publicized arrest made today. And I've been thinking a lot about it, and it seems reflective of this new frontier in the military personnel, military recruiting, the outcomes of targeting and recruiting people in places like Reddit, like Discord, like esports and gaming and streaming conventions. Like these are the people.
He was early 20s, right?
Get.
Like this is the new blood,
Yeah, and I think the lines of privacy and confidentiality and how we communicate, there's a lot of blurriness there, right? Because he thought he was sharing I ultimately don't care that these documents are out there. Like I can't imagine there was no state secrets. It was like, I think a lot of, military equipment type material from what I read. I don't care. Like, I don't care about the documents themselves. I'm fascinated by this whole story because of how they were shared and how it got out there, going from this what he thought was private Discord server to a Minecraft server to a national story about military and national security. Like it's just been so fascinating to me. Have you guys been following this?
I have, and can I tell you, it is like, it's kind of concerning to me because I looked around the internet, and I think one of the first places that I saw was from a very like liberal leaning like area, because CNN was reporting on it, and all I saw were people commenting, people with like blue waves and everything in their names, like do you even have clearance to speak about the CNN? And it's just like, what is happening? How have we become like so enmeshed within this security state that you're literally like trying to sit up and like go after journalists because they might like report on like a security leak? Like, what's going on? Why are you defending a military that gave absolutely no shits about their security parameters, as evidenced by the fact that some like early 20-year-old was able to just jump in and start dumping their secrets? Like, what are you doing? What are you touting for the military for this on?
Yeah, and
it's very interesting to see where people's line is on this story in particular, because the way that I've seen it, especially amongst like more liberal communities, is typified as like, well, looks like the Chuds have another hero, and it's like, I don't think that's what you should take away from this. I think this is a sage discussion that should be had about how vulnerable a lot of the state's like military apparatus is currently.
Yeah, and I just found it really bizarre and off-putting seeing these like journalists kind of like self-deputizing themselves to like find the leaker immediately and get to the bottom of this.
Yeah,
to be like good little boys and girls for the like snitches for the for the security state. It's bizarre. Like, is that your job to do that? Like, leave that to that's their job. It's their leak. Like, they fucked up. Why is it the New York Times or Bellingcat's job? And yeah, I know some people may enjoy that. I know the podcast guy works for them. They've taken money from the NED. If you're an independent media outlet and you take money from the NED, I think that makes you immediately suspect. I'm sorry to say, but yeah, I find it really strange. But that's how they respond to that. We need to get to the bottom of who this leaker was, which they know full well is going to lead to huge legal consequences for whoever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Like, I don't. Like I said, I don't care for like anything about like, you know, I agree with you, Jordan. If the files are out there, they're out there. It just kind of is what it is. But I think it's just very interesting to sit up and, you know, phalanx around you know, a security state that made its own mistakes.
Yeah. They get like $1 trillion a year. Like, let them deal with this stuff. Like, they got enough resources to do this.
God.
I did see some kind of conspiracy theorizing about it, that it was possibly some kind of intentional disinformation being shared.
Yeah, I saw the Russian disinformation line as well. They were like, well, actually, how do we know that Russia wasn't in that Discord server? I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, or an intentional disinformation leak from the security state in the first place. But I just don't know enough to speculate that much. I do enjoy speculating on that kind of wacky conspiratorial stuff. But
yeah, sure.
I don't know enough to really come down either way about it. My main takeaway was that I thought it was weird how these like hall monitor media types were coming together to circle the wagons around the United States military establishment. Yeah. Like, Jesus Christ.
We have to help those poor uwu beans. Yeah. They lost their homework. Documents. If we don't get it back for them, they'll never finish.
That's
also
weird to me.
So some of these documents were about, you know, what we had previously been trying to cover up, right? It is U.S. involvement in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And that is something that they have tried to dismiss for a long time, despite, you know, suspicions that the U.S. was much more involved in Ukraine than they were letting on. When it comes to identifying the leaker and naming this person, think about the role the New York Times and other outlets like them have played in selling these wars, right?
Absolutely.
This is just, I
think
for
of
the
course. Cycle that they've done. Yeah, 100%.
It ultimately is unsurprising that they would identify this person and out them, which then led to the arrest. Okay. I mean, they're on their same bullshit. You have a fucking 8 byline story outing this guy because he revealed semi-privately initially that we were much more involved in Ukraine than the U.S. government was telling us. Like, we should know that. It's ridiculous. Because here's the thing. It's not just about transparency. It's also about the consequences of a deeper level of involvement than what they're telling us. Because here's the thing. Russia would be able to identify as well. Them lying to us allows them to creep closer and closer to an escalation or an all-out war with Russia, potentially devastating or nuclear consequences, and we're kept in the dark because the government lies. I don't give a shit that these documents are out there. It's good that we know. And the fact that the New York Times rushed to out this person rather than condemning the U.S. involvement in Ukraine shows the role the legacy media has in these types of conversations altogether.
Yeah.
I mean, as always, it absolutely speaks to their baser intentions, right? Like, there is absolutely no concern over what might have been the documents and any of it. You know, this person obviously at fault. Any of the actual documents circumspect at best. You know, from what I've seen from people discussing it. Like I said, dismissing it outright as Russian information, dismissing it as like, completely fabricated. It's just, I don't know.
I mean,
it's
rough. An interesting link as well. You talk about the role that the New York Times in particular, but American corporate media in general has played in manufacturing consent for all these wars and coups and different kind of imperialist endeavors on the part of the state, which is actually extra funny to see them all freak the fuck out when they get labeled or identified as being, in the case of NPR or PBS, being identified as being like state funded or government funded, and say no, they'll freak out at this implication that there could possibly be influenced by this. But I think that's the kind of interesting thing. I don't want to hand it to Elon Musk on this because I don't think he's doing this for any of the right reasons because he's a massive dipshit. But
no, of course,
it is very funny to see the freak out.
He's also like similarly government funded.
Exactly.
They're all.
He should give himself the same disclaimer.
He has no like noble intentions. No. Of course,
no.
It's just but it is like I said this morning. It's extremely funny, like that they would. I think it does like. It lends to, delegitimizing his platform even more. So that's fun.
Yeah.
I hope that he destroys the entire endeavor.
And we can all be free.
We can all be free. I just want the posters to be free. I'm good. I post like twice a month, but I want the people to post every day. I want them to be free.
Exactly.
Well, Lucid, you don't post as often because you're often streaming on Twitch. Where can people tune in to watch your stream? And if for your sporadic posts, where can they find you?
So twitch.tv/LucidFoxx with 2 X's, Monday through Friday, starting at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is where I'm normally at. And then besides that, you can find me on Twitter with the same name. I mostly just post pictures of my dog at this point, or retweet things about the sexy Ganondorf from the new Zelda trailer. But past that, I really don't have anything to offer in the way of social media these days.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Lucid.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure as always.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for listening to The Insurgents. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can find us on iTunes or Spotify or at Substack, theinsurgents.substack.com. You'll get the latest episodes delivered straight to your inbox, as well as our newsletter. On Twitter, we are at InsurgentsPod. Tweet at us, harass Ken in our replies, and then send us your hate mail to theinsurgentspod@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening.